much. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming here. I've been an attorney since 2004. I've been a mom since 2006, and I've been a photographer since 2011. And over the years, my role as memory keeper and memory revealer have been constantly in flux. And while sharing my way through motherhood, I began to question whether I was putting my children's privacy in jeopardy and whether my children's life stories were really mine to tell. And so studying children's privacy on social media fed both my personal interests and my professional passions. And so about 7 years ago, I delved deep into the work of studying this intersection between how we share about our kids and what rights to privacy our children might have. It's often called sharenting. And so I'd like to talk to you a little bit about it and share with you what I've learned over my years of research. Now, this applies to parents, but it also applies to grandparents, caregivers, schools, anyone who might be sharing information online about kids. And I'm going to start by giving you a personal story because so much of my work found its genesis in self-reflection. In 2006, I was a new mom documenting almost every moment of my young son's life. I didn't use social media because it barely existed outside of Mark Zuckerberg's dorm room at the time. But I did share pictures through email. I had family photo sharing sites. And a few years later, I began blogging. Blogging became really popular. And I was blogging my way through motherhood, sharing many of my son's firsts on a public website. I didn't have a care in the digital cloud, and I disclosed his personal information because at the time, my son's story and my own seemed very much like one and the same thing. It felt like we really shared an identity. And it never occurred to me that he would one day get older and want to go online and define himself on his own terms. Now, when my first son turned 3, I did put a password on the blog, concerned that perhaps I could be putting his privacy at risk, sharing so much in a public space. But I kept sharing, both on the blog and at that time, starting to share on Facebook. My 10 friends quickly became 100 friends. And before I knew it, I had amassed over 1,000 friends on Facebook in my virtual community. Now, fast forward to 2011, and I had my second son. My parents lived in West Palm Beach at the time, and they drove up to Gainesville to be present for the birth. My mom was really excited to be in the delivery room to witness her grandson's birth. And my dad was in the waiting room, and he was sitting there waiting, and he was excited to find out about when the baby arrived. And he expected to find out by my excited husband ushering him back into the delivery room. But instead, as my father spent his time scrolling on Facebook during my long labor, he all of a sudden saw that his grandson had indeed arrived earthside. He did not find out from my husband, though. He found out through the tiny screen in the palm of his hands. Because moments after my son's birth, he took his first steps on Facebook when my husband and I proudly posted his picture online. Now, thankfully, my dad did eventually forgive me. Took a little while. But the experience stuck with me for a long time. What did he lose by not being told about the birth personally? How must that have made him feel? And what was my son losing as I was constantly sharing my way through motherhood? Next slide. I'm a former child abuse prosecutor, and I'm currently a law professor at UF. I'm also a photographer. And it's my time in the courtroom, my experience as an academic, and my life as a mom to 3 very photogenic children, here's 2 of them, who led me to look at this and look at it from many different angles, eventually culminating in me writing a book about it. You know, parents and grandparents, all adults in kids' lives, spend countless hours instructing kids on how to share responsibly online. And we do have some great resources to provide children with that instruction. But many adults are lost when it comes to their own sharing practices. While parents and caregivers are the natural protectors of a child's digital identity, there truly is a unique conflict at the heart of sharenting. Because parents are both the protector and the one that benefits from sharing information, there's no opt-out link. A parent's split-second decision to share can have a lifetime of consequences for a child. When we talk about how young people often risk harming their own digital identities, we rarely discuss our own practices and the harm that it can cause to these same children. And this dearth of discussion leaves even the most well-intentioned parents really unable to fully appreciate the issue before they press share on that digital device. As adults, caregivers, parents, we have full control over what we share about the kids in our care. Isn't it ironic that so much attention is focused on their poor online behavior and so little of it is focused on our own? Next slide. So as we talk today about children's online privacy, I'd like us to shift our focus from where it traditionally centers, which is on the kids themselves. I'd like to encourage us to become more well-informed social media users. And I want to encourage us to talk to lawmakers and companies to use evidence-based research when creating policies and practices that impact kids. You know, we often try to focus on what third parties might do with information that parents share about, that third parties share about kids, like the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act that controls what companies do with our children's information. But these laws all place parent in the role of gatekeeper, and they're the one that is supposed to exercise due diligence with releasing the information. But when parents are also the one opening the gate, there's this unique conflict that's not really there, that's not really simple. So as I've gone through this work for the last 7 years, I've identified a few best practices or a few tips that we can all keep in mind when we go about sharing about our kids. Next slide. The number one tip is to give kids veto power. We can encourage adults to talk to kids about what they're sharing, and whenever feasible, allow kids to decide which pictures to share and which stories to tell. Because when we share pictures of our kids without asking them first, we're ultimately teaching them that when they become adult social media users or teen social media users on their own, that they don't need to ask other people permission before posting their pictures either. Every time an adult takes a picture of a child and asks them if it's okay to share it, we have a powerful opportunity. We have an opportunity to teach those children about consent, about modeling respect. And these lessons are going to be critical for our teens to understand long before they get their first Instagram account. Reminding parents that it's important that we model appropriate social media sharing is critical. Here in the United States, for example, we don't give kids driver's licenses until they have time to practice driving alongside an adult. We don't have kids cross the street until we spend many times crossing the street with their hand in hand. We can model appropriate social media sharing by respecting their privacy, by giving them perhaps access to a shared account with us, and giving them an opportunity to feel empowered on our social media feeds so that when they take the reins, they've had someone model what it means to be an appropriate social media user or a good digital citizen. Now, today's kids might be the first generation to grow up alongside social media, but we are the first generation of adults trying to assist this generation, the first to grow up shared. Next slide. So another personal story. I've learned most of my lessons the hard way. When my older son first logged on to Instagram, he took a selfie of his younger brother and me and himself, and he posted it on Instagram without asking us first. Now, I was okay with it because it was a pretty flattering picture. But his little brother did not feel the same, and he was pretty upset that his brother had posted this. I was tempted to get upset with my son, to discipline him, to take away his social media account. But I realized that I hadn't really been the best role model when it came to social media sharing up until that point. And so I did my best to take what could have been a punishing moment and turn it into a teaching moment, one that started with me promising to try to do a better job of practicing what I often preach. You know, our technology has surpassed our frontal lobe cortex, the part of our brains responsible for logical reasoning and for decision making. It's surpassed how quickly we can make a decision, and our split seconds to share create lasting footprints for our kids. So if technology has sped things up, it's up to us as caregivers to slow it down. And in that process of teaching them, of slowing it down, we can teach our kids to slow down their thought processes as well. Next slide. So kids want parents to be asking for permission. And there have been a few studies that have done a great job of showing this. A Comrades Global study conducted for the BBC in the UK found that by the age of 9, kids had very strong reactions to parenting. Their reactions grew even stronger by 12, and many were frustrated because their parents weren't asking them first. Researchers at the University of Michigan have made similar findings. Kids don't understand why their parents can just post about them, yet they're told all the time that they can't share about others without asking. The study had explored how parents shared about how parent sharing affected these kids, and they studied 64 parent-child pairs. And more than 1 in 4 of the children told the researchers that when their parents shared, it made them feel embarrassed, it made them feel anxious, made them feel worried or sad. Kids have no recourse against their parents oversharing for many reasons. Number one is that, especially here in the United States, probably in most places, kids are expected to abide by the will of their parents. Second, kids often lack the language to express their feelings or their disdain for what their parents might be doing. And lastly, kids often lack a full understanding of the implications of their parents' online conduct. And it's only in this uniquely original circumstance that society is ready to receive and analyze and understand the data from this great social media experiment that we are all in. Next slide. So my tip number 2, another one that I'm working hard at accepting in my own life, is not to mistake highlight reels for real memories. It is so easy for us all to get stuck and get excited by the instant gratification that social media offers us. When we take a picture and we instantly share it online, we're escaping from the moment that we're in, and we're going into the world of our newsfeed. And that takes us away from the people who are standing right in front of us. And for caregivers, those people are often children. We need to allow our kids an opportunity to make memories that are not impeded by our use of digital devices and by technology. A few years ago, I experienced this firsthand right on Northwest 16th Street at my synagogue. I was there watching the 3rd graders all get recognized and get an award. And I was in the back row trying to capture pictures of my son. And I got some great pictures. And after the event, but while the families were still socializing at the synagogue, I went up to another family to try to show the father a picture that I had taken of his daughter receiving her award. "It's okay," the friend said. "She can see it later. I'll see it later." He wanted his daughter and himself to be able to savor the event and to be able to remember it from their perspective. He wanted her to enjoy the cake. He wanted her to remember what it felt like to have the lights in the eye, to be standing next to the rabbi, to look out and see her father in the front row. That's the perspective he wanted her to have, not the one that I had captured from the back of the synagogue sanctuary. Next slide. There's some evidence that supports that not showing kids our photos and videos so close in time to an event can be very good for them. Because when we do show it to them right away, it could change their perspective and it can alter their memories. Writing for the New York Times, Julia Cho helped me understand that by constantly documenting childhood, which I do a lot as a photographer, we are in some ways rewriting childhood. Childhood memory should be based on our kids' perceptions as they're minors, right? Like I want my daughter to remember Disney World from her perspective the first time she went, not by the edited and curated view that I captured and quickly posted on my social media newsfeed. Next slide. So earlier I asked you to shift your focus from the kids and onto the caregivers, but it's really not all about controlling parents. It's not at all about controlling parents either. Us adults need policymakers to be able to help support them as they decide how to better share online. And these policymakers need research to help the policymakers make evidence-based policies that can help kids. So what we know is that many parents are lulled into false senses of security, that the data they share about their kids won't be seen beyond their intended audience. But even when we share with smaller audiences, those posts can reach a large group. For example, if the website has some sort of a data breach that takes place, or if someone takes a screenshot of a picture and shares it in another way. So kids can be harmed by disclosures in a number of ways. And here's two of them that I've seen featured in the news as concerns. One Australian e-safety commissioner reported that almost half of the images that he was finding on pedophile image sharing sites had originated on family blogs and on family social media feeds. These weren't sexualized images, but they were images that pedophiles were choosing to save and download and use for bad purposes. And they were coming from innocent websites of where parents were trying to share their pictures with family and friends. Barclays, the bank Barclays, is predicting that sharenting will account for 2/3 of all identity theft facing young people by the end of the next decade. According to NYU researchers, data brokers build profiles about people, and they sell these profiles to advertisers, spammers, malware distributors, employment agencies, even college admissions officers. Using the information that adults share online about their kids, data brokers can create mini profiles that can be continuously enhanced throughout an individual's lifetime. It's scary enough to think that our information is being used and sold. It's terrifying to think that this is happening to our kids before they can even get online themselves. Next slide. And next slide. Sorry, forgot to move it forward. Okay, you can keep clicking another one more time and one more time. Cool. Okay, so this is an example of a picture that a parent might have shared online thinking that it was perfectly innocent. This one here, where the child's face was not blurred out and there was not an emoji put on his bum. So this was a picture that was shared, and all of a sudden I had noticed on Facebook a few years ago, this meme, when you realize you overdid it for the holidays, being shared by many of my well-intentioned friends, not really thinking about the fact that this was a child who could have been identified by this face through AI type of technology, and that was shared hundreds, if not thousands of times. When I did a reverse image search of the image, it came up in all of these different places on all of these different websites. Not only could a picture like this end up in dangerous hands, I can't help but wonder if this child will one day grow up unhappy, embarrassed that they were the subject of such a public joke. It's just unfathomable to think about. And when we think about our cutest pictures, unfortunately, those are the ones that can be the easiest targets. Next slide. I've also done some research on an issue called morphed child pornography, which is when an innocent image of a child is morphed with an adult sexual image to create a new form of child pornography. Now, federal laws will hold that these types of images are illegal and are criminal, but state laws have been very slow to catch up with technology. And even in the state of Florida, morphed child pornography images are actually outside of the net that a prosecutor could go ahead and prosecute. Next slide. So I've talked to you a lot about the bad things, but I don't want to lose sight of the good. There are many benefits to sharenting. And I set off doing this research, wanting to thinking I would never want to share again, but that's not what happened. I do keep sharing. I do keep sharing because I like feeling connected to the friends and family that I don't see every day. I like knowing what's happening in my friends' lives. I like to meet new people online. I like to take part in communities. All of these things are easier to do because of social media. Next slide. Along with taking pictures of my own kids, I've spent a lot of time taking pictures of other people's families, including kids who are suffering from chronic medical conditions like pediatric cancer. And these families have often shared their pictures because they know that so much good can come from sharing their stories with others. These families know that their sick children have benefited by being connected with their community outside of their hospital rooms. Next slide. When we share wholeheartedly, we connect deeper with our community, both the one in our brick and mortar world and the community in our virtual world. These human experiences raise important awareness for key social issues. They help secure funding for important medical research. When struggling families share openly, others who are similarly situated gain support, and they gain knowledge. Next slide. There is so much power in our stories and in our narratives. These pictures, each one tells a story, and silencing families from telling their stories would be harmful to society. This is one of the reasons that I try to tread somewhat lightly when it comes to sharing. And this is one of the reasons why I have found that I continue to share. Next slide. I experienced the power of social media firsthand a few years ago. When my son was bullied in middle school right here in Gainesville for being Jewish, we tried to get the situation resolved by going to the school, but it didn't work. And ultimately, we had to have a family meeting to decide what to do next because the bullying was intensifying. Ultimately, we decided to share his experience on social media, and our hope was to effectuate change with the school board's response. And we had a meeting scheduled to go to the school board. And so we started small, publishing something in our tight-knit community through a private Jewish Facebook group, and the response was incredible. With my son's okay, some of the adult friends decided to start a petition asking the school board to take anti-Semitism more seriously. In less than 2 days, that petition garnered over 1,000 signatures. And as we prepared to go to the school board meeting that week, my son decided that he also wanted to speak. I wasn't thinking about sharing today, my son told the school board in front of a packed audience. But then we had a petition. I knew people supported me. And because of that, I decided that I could get up here and also share. My son didn't need my voice anymore. He had found his own, in no small part to the support that he had received on social media. Next slide. So perhaps what we need are some legal remedies for kids. As a legal scholar, I often turn to the law to try to help me understand how we can better regulate family situations to help them thrive. But it's really difficult because we have First Amendment free speech protections here in the United States. And to silence a parent's voice would also go against the idea that parents have the fundamental right to decide how to best raise their children. So if parents are going to be sharing online, we might need to find better ways for kids to be able to have some privacy from their parents or some privacy when they get older and they're able to take control of their social media feeds. Next slide. So in my work, and likely in your day-to-day lives, I never want to silence a parent's voice or a caregiver's voice. Instead, what I want to do is I want to empower parents to make better sharing decisions for their families. But sometimes this empowerment can come too late. Information that has been shared can outlive its welcome on the internet. So perhaps one tool that we could use is the right to be forgotten. And this is a right that exists in many other contexts in the United States. Like, for example, when we think about juvenile delinquency records that eventually can get expunged from a juvenile's records. What it could do is it could recognize that when children are younger, parents have a strong interest in sharing their children's story for support, for community, for many different reasons. But as they get older, that need to share and that benefit from sharing is minimized. You can push the next button. And it has to make way, and you can push the next button, for the competing growing privacy interests of the child. It could allow kids to request deletion of certain information that's been put out there in the public sphere. Now, it might be difficult to see a law like this come to fruition in the United States because of our strong free speech protections, but there is some precedent for this, and it's something that I've been working on exploring, and if we had even more time, I'd kind of explain the nuts and bolts, and I'd be happy to explain it to anybody afterwards if they'd like. I think there's also hope that the private sector might step in here. Just recently, Google announced that parents and kids could request that pictures of their kids be deleted from search results upon request. And it's actions like this by companies that would not be subject, because it's by a company, it would not be subject to First Amendment free speech protections. Go ahead and next slide. So what I know is that in the United States, courts usually defer to parents. But what I spend a lot of time thinking about is what's going to happen when kids come of age with digital footprints not of their own making. What I question is, will kids be able to successfully sue their parents for oversharing? Haven't seen it happen yet in the US. I also wonder about families that have YouTube channels, kids of celebrities that might be profiting from the sharing. I question what happens when co-parents disagree and one parent wants to share and the other doesn't. And then because I'm a child welfare attorney, I question how foster and adoptive parents fit into this conversation as well. Next slide. What I've learned overall, what I feel strongly about, is that parents don't intrude upon a child's digital identity because they are being malicious. It's that they simply have not yet considered the importance of their child's digital footprint. Next slide. And because of that, while the law might be able to step in and regulate at some of the margins, perhaps having some sort of a public awareness campaign could be a much better way to be able to help change public discourse and raise awareness. Parents want to do what's best for their kids. Caregivers want to do what's best for their kids. They just don't necessarily have the information to go ahead and do it in this space. Next slide. So I've tried to partner with pediatricians and individuals from other interdisciplinary fields to be able to get this message out. Like I did a presentation for consumer affairs scholars, and I wrote an article for JAMA Pediatrics with a local pediatrician. And we've gotten some really great traction from that end. We're also doing a lot talking to parents who have kids that have vulnerable medical conditions to help recognize that their issues and interests might even be different. And so what I say often is that if we have this educational model, we can really put parents in the driver's seat to make these decisions because there are no black and white clear answers. It is complex. Parents are the first generation trying to do this, and we don't have our own experience to guide us. Next slide, please. It's been an absolutely thrilling ride to sit alongside this first generation of parents raising kids alongside social media. And as those of you who know me well know, it is really hard to change my own sharing practices to model the best practices that I found in my research. Turning what we know as best practices into what we do in our own lives is challenging. And through my 7 years of research and almost 20 years of lawyering, I haven't found clear answers. I make plenty of mistakes. I post and delete all the time. And I think it's because somewhere intertwined with my children's own story is my story. Our stories are so intertwined. And for a photographer that I am, for a writer, for a creative person of any kind, silencing that self-expression feels incredibly cold, and it's super hard to do. And so I keep sharing, and I keep questioning my decisions and recalibrating based on the research. I even struggled to decide if it was okay to share pictures in this presentation, even though I took all the pictures and the families were thrilled to have me share them in my work. I still have so much to learn, and I've discovered that it is critical that if we are going to spend so much time thinking about what our kids are doing on social media, we also need to spend time thinking about our own choices. Next slide. And so perhaps it's about balance, and I'm still looking for it. A few years ago, I was thrilled to see my son's chess tournament featured on one television station on the same day that I went on another television station to talk about children's privacy. And that night, when the kids were in bed and I settled on the couch, I shared both my son's news feature and my own on social media. I still share my younger son's gymnastics highlights, my daughter's amazing artwork, and my oldest son's incredible drum solos. I ask them before I do, and now that they're older, they sometimes come to me asking me to share. They know that I share about them because I'm proud of them. But what I try to do is remind them regularly that I would be proud of them even if they did not want me to share. Next slide. And what I know is that we need to be talking about this. We need to be thinking about how we share about our kids. We need to talk about it like we talk about how we educate our kids, like we talk about how we can best keep them healthy, like we talk about if we should monitor our teens online, and like the younger parents of younger kids stress and obsess over the amount of time our kids spend on YouTube. I hope my research ultimately helps kids grow up able to control their own digital footprint. I hope it helps parents share smarter. I hope it helps kids feel heard. But untangling a parent's right to share his story and a child's right to enter adulthood, free to create his own digital footprint, is a daunting task. It's one that's going to require all of us. This first group of kids are entering that are on social media are just now entering adulthood and college and the job market. We need to invite them into the conversation. Our kids require our voices. Next slide, last slide. I kind of hinted to this earlier, but what's really stuck with me is that our experiences in the 80s and the 90s, for me personally, in the school lunchroom, don't translate to my kids' experiences day to day on Snapchat. I don't get to learn from my experience as a teenager to help me become a better parent to a teenager today. We have to be learning about how social media affects our families, and we have to be putting these findings into practice all at once. And that's super hard to do. But if we wait for our kids to grow up and to tell us what they think about what we've posted in our news feeds, well, at that point, it's going to be too late to step back and unpublish their childhoods. I hope that my presentation today helped you think deeper about how we share about our kids and how we interact with our families. Our kids are counting on us to share smarter and help them succeed on social media. Thank you so much.
So much, Stacey. Thanks for this amazing presentation. And I'm sure a lot of parents have thought about this, but my son is now 31, and you know, he was coming up in his teen years, starting to get on to social media, way back in the day when they had MySpace, and I came to the party because I decided to get on to social media after my son left for college, so I would have a way to stay in contact with him, and he would even consider that his mother was cool. But I think that, you know, with younger children, and also if we have grandchildren or we're caregivers to children, there's so many questions that Stacey has raised, and maybe there aren't any great answers yet because we haven't historically come forward enough yet. But I really welcome anybody who has questions for Stacey to stay here. And yes, go ahead.
More comments and because I you know, my kids are 13 and 15, and so yeah, I'm very much in that, and I did really into Facebook. They're not, and at some point they just pretty much we had fights, you know, like because I was oversharing, and as they were growing, and just really strongly saying, I don't want any pictures of me. You can't, you know, they really, and I was like, why can't, you know, like there's that whole, like, but I'm trying to share with my, you know, with my group of friends and family, and I understood their concerns. I mean, there was even a picture of my son far away on top of the stairs, and probably would not like me to share that right now. Anyways, it was like, just a picture, and he, you know, remembers that, and it's far away. It's from a note, so you can probably hopefully pixelate. It would be pixelated if it gets too close. Anyways, but he still remembers that he was little, you know, and he hated that I posted that, and it was such a funny picture for me, you know, like and we struggled through the whole, you know, conversation about that, and finally, you know, I am learning a lot, you know, from them and from these fights, and I don't do that anymore. I usually share my dog and my garden and myself too, but so I have to ask them, and still today, you know, there are times like, you know, like he's taking a nap and I'm like taking a picture, and he's like, Mom, do not share that, you know, I'm like, I'm not sharing it. There's that trust, you know, like the trust between him and me has been broken a bit because of that, and I feel for that. So it's so hard. Yeah.
You want to call a question?
Yes, sir, back there.
I just talked to the last thing and I asked about what's going on. And they say you talk about social media, whatever. And
It's broadcasting to the people on Zoom.
my question right here is like this. My thoughts and everything like this. On the news, every time you look at the news, it really hurts my heart. Somebody got caught stealing, drunk driving, texting, Kids somebody hit and run, or even worse, TikTok, Facebook, the app dating app, or like she was saying about the phone thing. And see, my friend, her daughter, she got her a while back on the phone about that because she's too young. And see, I understand it because a while back I was at in Georgia on a Christmas holiday, and she was on the phone with her, and I'm trying to look and see what she was doing with her. I'm like, oh, this is my friend. And I told her grandma like this. I say, I was trying to see what she was doing. It's a good thing her mama got onto her and spanked her behind a little bit, with a belt, whatever. Because back in my day when I was coming up, it wasn't like that, whatever. Well, everybody raised different, their children different, everything days now. And see, back in the days it was different. These days in time, I see it like this: they're getting too grown and sassy and cuss their parents out and disrespect them. Each day, every day I work on mom and dad was still here. I do. Because I wouldn't, I'm grown now, but I thank God. I'm 50-something years old. I thank God. People say I look younger than that, but thank God for that age, I lived in the city for many more years. I wish they would like they ban TikTok on college kids, I think. I read the news. And Facebook is another thing I think they should because all of us is not everybody think different and look at it different. My point of view like this is I don't do Facebook. I don't do TikTok. I'm doing none of them. They after the stuff over. Because see, too much going on in this world today. Too much robbing, raping, stealing, killing going on, stuff. Number the devil. And that's where it first started at, I think, because people get their mind, the devil get their mind. These little kids out here, them are kids. I tell people these days, why would a grown man want to mess with one of them? I mean, they ain't even full grown yet. They're not full grown yet. It's a sickness. It's a disease, I think. It's the number of the devil. It's wicked.
So I'm going to jump in with a quick question. Thank you. So Stacey, I've seen you present on this in a couple of different capacities in the past, and it really has transformed the way that I think about sharing anything, which is to say, I really, after hearing the first time you share about sharenting, I have not really, without asking, and it's transformed the way that I think about sharing photos. My strategy is at this point, I really just text relevant people, grandparents, aunts, uncles, that sort of thing. Have you seen any other strategies like that either maybe you have come up with in doing this research or that other people have shared with you beyond just like keep it in texts?
So it's an accomplishment that I'm just so proud of my kids on, and the whole world can know about it. If they're cool with it, I'm cool sharing it. The other thing that I'm experiencing with my 12-year-old is he's a competitive gymnast. He spends 20 hours a week working out, and he is really proud of what he's accomplished and what he does. And I'm not ready to have him have his own social media account to share his routine, but I've changed my Instagram account to be Steinberg family. And so I allow him to share with me. It's not on his phone, it's on my phone, but so he's actually kind of getting to see how that works. He's getting to see me say, well, I like that video, but I can see too much of this or that, and this is why we're not sharing it. And so we talk about it. And I think that you can't do that when they're too young, but I think that that's really been helpful. It's great for my 9-year-old also. I found that my 9-year-old actually is the one who's less likely to want me to share. And so I really don't share much about her at all. But because she's 9, her reasoning is a little weak, and she'll end up like when she saw me give this talk a couple year ago, she actually burst out into tears after because there weren't enough pictures of her. We don't want to over talk about it. We want to meet them at their level, but it can be complex.
Yep. Mary, did you have a question? I know you've been waiting a long time, then I'll get to Malika.
Involved with this, but I find that I keep forgetting that when you have an app that includes pictures, the default setting on it is often open to sharing. As opposed to you have to do something to block it from being shared. And a lot of the apps and you can forget that you have actually put the entire app on to share in that particular mode. So I'm wishing that if there were any laws that we change the default settings on some of the apps that come out and anything shared picture. So I just became aware, I've been aware of it when I posted an old picture of my daughter that she wanted off, and I took it off. And it was 1,000 other places than the place that I had originally posted it. And I realized that I was doing that with everything on that app.
And some of them now, like Instagram and Facebook, are owned by the same company, that if you don't set it, then if you think you're sharing with your tiny audience on Instagram, you've actually just shared it with everyone on Facebook.
Everybody who has a Meta
Yeah.
app.
You know,
Mhm.
but everything becomes public on Facebook. You know, like it just takes one screenshot of all of it for the data brokers to have a ton of information.
I relate to your story because I had my first kid in 2009, and I think parenthood just felt so lonely, like the day-to-day drudge of it. So sharing like the cute moments or whatever on Facebook really kind of made me feel less lonely. But I did end up quitting Facebook because I felt like everything I would do with my kid, I was just in my phone with it, you know, and even with like going to like the elementary school, like to the performances and stuff, like all the parents will be like filming it. And I feel like, are we really watching this experience, or are we all just capturing it? Are you even going to rewatch it later? You know? So I've definitely scaled back. I have one kid age 13, one kid age 4. And my question to you is how to walk back some of those, you know, like, do you delete pictures? Do you save them to a photo album and print them out so you still have that memory, but they no longer need to be on this kind of public page? I'm not on Facebook, but I am on Instagram. And I think I do have like something like 700 followers. I'm sure they're not all my close friends, you know?
I think that's a big thing. So
Mhm.
I archive things regularly. Even my closest friends, my mom, and she went on my Facebook page. Pretty much anything more than a year ago is already gone. So I'll share it and it will apply for instantly for right now. It's something that I might want people to know, but then I'll delete it later. And I also, with my oldest son, that was when I kind of started doing that and let them decide, do you want to take some of this off? I see the next generation using the stories feature a lot more, which deletes the spot automatically after 24 hours. So I think we might see more of that.
Yes.
I'm curious, Stacey, if there's any legal precedent or recourse for other people sharing my children. So for example, my child is Darth Vader today, for those of you who are in early service. He often shows up places making a bit of a spectacle of himself, but I've been kind of stunned with the number of grown adults who feel like it is okay to take a picture of my child in public. And I've had to confront a number of people to say, I don't know what your plan is with that photo, and I would prefer you not take a picture of my child when his full face is available. I'm just curious. I don't know if there is anything that protects their as children, their right to privacy in a public space like that.
So there have been
Question.
cases that have precedent and protected. The Netherlands was a case where grandma got fined for sharing too much about my child in order to take it down. In the US, there's probably your options would probably be under child support law. There's different, there might be an invasion of privacy court, but there's not a lot of precedent for showing how that is going to play out. And so it is concerning and it is a problem. And we see these problems in the news. There was a case of overreaction to money at a day school at one time, and the kid was like freaking out, and the day school decided to post a video, even though the parent hadn't agreed to post those things. And sure, it got taken down eventually, but like not before millions of people saw it, and it was featured on television, and it was featured as funny, but you had parents who were outraged by it. Yes.
Sorry, just a quick question about, do you know of any other strategies for like I was thinking, just here about going back to like doing more albums, right? I mean, but of course there are problems doing that because it takes a long time. But do you have anything like maybe that is that you know of that you can do it electronically, but it's not out there in the cloud? And that, I mean, other than hard, because I've looked for albums all over the place and they're all like up. And I have millions of pictures in my computer and I don't know what to do with them, like it's just like I'm overwhelmed with them. So
Yeah. Well, yeah. You have to have a computer. There's a lot of applications to do that for. I spend a lot of time researching this, but I personally use Amazon. I have Amazon Prime. It comes with a service that not a lot of people know about called Amazon Prime Photos, where you can upload an unlimited number of photos. You can open the app from your phone and it will just automatically